the test, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So, as you guys know, it's Tuesday. Well, it's Wednesday for my people in the Philippines, but it was Tuesday. It still is for me, but only for a couple more hours. So we did have a title Tuesday rolling today. So I went ahead and grabbed the game between Wesley So and Daniel Naroditsky, also known as Danya. Big commentator. It's interesting because they played this game today, and literally Danya had just commentated on the ending of the Rapid Chess Championships yesterday. So it's interesting that they just kind of hopped into a game today. That's how things roll. But of course, always for my people that are coming from the Philippines, I would say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking makat ibigan. Masaya akong makinig kang muli. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Hello ulit. Mabuning pagbati ingat lagi to you guys. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Mugging the kila. So, yeah, that's it. And then there's English. So I got you. But yeah, if you guys are ready to go, let me see if I can touch this a touch. Okay. If you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for this game. All right, so we got the move E4, E5, knight comes to F3. We see knight to C6. We got bishop to C4, knight to F6. And we do have the move D3, which at this very moment, we have the Italian game, and it is the two knights modern bishop opening. And so, of course, as you guys know, if we do see the move bishop to C5, we would be in the Juco Pianissimo. But since we see the move H6, and then we got castles, and then we have the move D6, we have gotten into a different type of a game. So it pretty much just stays what I just said. And basically, when you go D6, of course, there's really only two options. Or at some point maybe pushing the pawn or something like that. But I mean, bishop to E7 and pushing G5, and then you have bishop, to G7. And that is what Danya is deciding to do in this game. We do see the move C3. We got G5. We see knight B to D2, and then we do see the bishop to G7. So he decides to play in more of a modern, hyper modern, type of way. So the bishop does drop back to B3. We see the move G4. And, this is kind of whack. I mean, white is in a really great position, but, I mean, it's kind of like, bro, I stuck my knight on F3. I want it to stay on F3. I don't want it to be moving, but you got to move it, man. So knight goes to E1. And, I mean, everything's still perfectly fine for both sides. If, you're kind of attacking on this side, so you're clearly probably not going to be castling on this side. So you just have to make sure that you follow your development and get castled over there. So we do see the move H5. And we do see the move F4. Now, I mean, in this particular situation, as white, you are castled on the king side already. So, I mean, Danya's saying, hey, bro, we're playing a 3-minute +1 game. I'm trying to put the heat on you. And so, those pawns can start coming kind of fast. So you can't just sit there and do nothing. So we do see the move F4, kind of trying to, see if we can maybe close the situation down a little bit, or at least stop black from, trying to bulldoze and stuff. So we do see the move pawn takes F4, and then we do see a rook takes F4, and then the novelty of the game, which is queen coming to E7. And this is starting to try to get things developed so that we could try to castle queen side, because of course, as you guys are familiar probably, that would definitely be the best side to castle on, simply because, like I said, Danya has already started to do like this whole attack thing on the king side. So you kind of want to tuck it into the queen side. So we do see the move D4. We see bishop to D7. And, the crazy thing about this situation is that's really your only option to move bishop to D7. But it, in fact, is basically the best move to make in the position. Of course, as you know, if you did move bishop to E6, you're going to be looking at D5 pretty quick, and there's nowhere else to put it. So, you just happen to be able to just make the only move in the position, which happens to be the best one. So, yes, we do see the move knight up to D3, and then we got long castles by black, and then we have reached a position where we have a pretty legitimate, move for white to make. It's actually the best move in the position, or I'll say one of the best moves. It's not like by far the best move, but it is a very interesting move. I think it's a tough move for people to find. So if you do want to pause the video and try to see what move that is, go ahead and do so. Okay, so you have a couple, you kind of have a couple different options. So I will say that there are two moves that there's one move I'll go into, but there's two moves that I can accept for the guess the move. And the one of them is knight to f1, and that is like trying to free your bishop up and possibly kind of, you know, swing the knight over, and, you know, you're just trying to position it into a better position. But the one that I think would actually be pretty tough for people to actually find, and that is the move knight coming up to c4. So if you got either one of those moves, then you would be correct. You know, black definitely has a little bit better of a position, but this is a type of a move that kind of, you know, puts black into a situation where, you know, you don't want to just go pawn grabbing, right? So like I said before, you are trying to kind of free this bishop up at some point. And you're just trying to get developed because you are having a little bit of a problem to be developing as white. So you got to try to do what you can do. And so, you know, like I said, black can't just get careless and do whatever they want to do. Because if we do say, hey, man, you know, this pawn on e4 looks kind of juicy, you know, knight taking e4, you would be looking at rook takes f7, and you don't want to die this horrible death at all. Because if the queen does accept here, you know, you're being forked right now. So that's the thing. And if you take here, you're going to be looking at either knight here or knight here, discovering a check on the king, and you are going to be winning this queen for absolutely free. And after the move knight to c4, if you say, hey, man, I'm going to just knock the knight away, right? Well, I mean, the knight is repositioning itself on a good square, and you still don't have the ability to just grab here because you have a similar type of an issue. So, I mean, there are kind of a lot of tactics involved with knight going to c4. But like I said, if you guess knight to f1 or knight to c4, you'd be absolutely correct. So, you know, feel good with either of those moves. But after we do see the move castles long by Danya, we do see the move rook to f1. And the kind of unfortunate thing about rook to f1 is you kind of see the rook going back and forth. It wasn't really absolutely necessary to move the rook. The rook was actually like legitimately placed. Of course, if you get it attacked with like bishop to h6 or something, you're gonna move it. But I mean, it wasn't attacked where it was. So I mean, you know, it's pretty logical just to kind of leave it where it was. We do see the move rook d to f8, and I mean, when you look at this position, the only really weakness that black has in their position, because they've castled on the correct side, they're getting, you know, their nice little attack rolling, is this f7 pawn. And as you guys know, even without the king being right there on that diagonal, you know, f7 can be a tender point. And you see the only thing that's preventing f7 from being captured is this knight on f6. So, you know, you don't really have the movability with your knight that you really like. And you can't really move it anywhere because, you know, rook to f7 is going to come. So in multiple positions, that is an issue. So you got to try to do something about that. So we do see rook d going to f8. The queen comes up to e2. We see the move g3. So, I mean, the pawns are kind of rolling, man. You don't really want to take because you're going to be looking at this h-pawn storming down. And you basically just have all of your pawns ripped from in front of your king. And, you know, you're just going to be pretty vulnerable. And as you guys can see, I mean, all the white's pieces are kind of hanging out over here. So you don't really have a whole lot of protection on this side of the board for your king. So we do see the move h. You're just trying to keep things close. Like I say before, you know, whenever you are in a situation where, you know, your opponent is attacking, is trying to open lines, you know, because there's two rooks that are over there. I mean, you know, these rooks can get very active really quick. So you really don't want black to be able to open the position up. So you're trying to keep it closed as possible. So the rook does slide over to e8, just attacking that pawn. And then we do see the move knight to f4. And we actually see the move h4. And this is another example of, you know, if the knight takes on e4, we're going to be looking at knight takes, queen takes, rook takes, and then bishop takes. And I mean, we pretty much just exchanged, you know, material, but, you know, everything is pretty even. So we don't have that as an option. So that's why you see Danya going h4, just, you know, kind of getting that pawn a little bit closer and just kind of shutting things down. And as you can see, the king doesn't really have a whole lot of movability right here. We do see queen going to d3. We see bishop to h6. The bishop comes down to c2. And now we have, you know, protected this pawn as much as we need. The king sidesteps over to b8. We see the move b4. And I mean, you know, you're castled on opposite sides of the board. But the major thing that you have to try to pay attention to in this position as white is the fact that you are not really in the best position. You're not quite ready to start attacking right now because you don't really have your pieces. You're in a very defensive position because basically all of your pieces are set up right now to basically defend this pawn. And so you're not in an attacking position right now. Plus, you know, this bishop is not, you know, developed. This knight is kind of blocking it. I mean, this rook is not super active. The rooks are not connected. So there are multiple reasons why, I mean, you know, it's not like it's just you're just completely losing, but you are not in a situation to attack. You need to try to get the position a little bit more neutral before you start to kind of attack the position. So Wesley So's not quite ready to attack. We see the move knight back to d8, and this is going to be a very important knight maneuver that I will show you in a second. We do see the move a4. Bishop takes f4. We see rook taking f4, and then we do see the knight coming down to e6. And this is the maneuver I was telling you guys about. The problem with the rook being on this particular square is that it only has these two squares to really go to if it wants to protect this pawn laterally. And so knight to e6, takes super advantage of the fact that the rook cannot hold itself on this square, and it also can't step over here. It's just going to go bye-bye. So, a lot of the major problems that Wesley So has had to this point in this game is his rook, like, not really finding, like, the best square, the best home, and it's just kind of getting kicked around. We do see rook going back to f1, and like I told you guys before, the rook is just kind of just like going back and forth. So it's not really achieving much as it's kind of moving back and forth. So it's kind of wasting, tempi a little bit. And Danya just has like, a really great initiative that he's building up. It's just doing really good things for him. So we do see the knight going to g5, and this kind of forces the move, but you really just kind of want to give the pawn away. Rook goes to f4, and like I said, I mean, all you're really doing as white is you're putting your pieces on squares that just defend a pawn. So you got the queen, you got the knight, you got the bishop, you got the rook. So and black is just literally just holding you down, and so you're in a very, very passive defensive position. The problem is whenever you get in situations where your opponent is constantly attacking you and you're constantly having to defend, a lot of the times you're going to put yourself in a bad tactical position, and that is actually the position that we are in right now as Wesley So, because we see the exclammy move, bishop takes h3, and you absolutely under no circumstances want to take this pawn back. I feel like you guys might can see, but this is a very perfect square for this knight to go to. So if you did take on h3, you are looking at the very, very sad face. This will give you nightmares. You are going to have bad dreams that night if you're Wesley So, if you just did this. You got the king under attack, and this rook is about to fall. And so this just really just kind of exclams the fact that this rook didn't really find the best squares to really go to in this game. But after we see bishop taking h3, of course, Wesley So is seeing all of this. So he's like, man, I don't want none of that. So he just goes ahead and just bites in and says, hey, man, I'll go ahead and just go knight to f3. We see bishop taking g2. We see knight taking g5. And then we see the move h3. And like I was telling you guys before, I mean, these pawns are insanely dangerous. This bishop is really, kind of controlling this diagonal. And this king does not have any, like, nothing defending him. He is completely stripped and completely open. We see the move bishop to d2, like developing the bishop now, trying to get the rook over, trying to see if we can do something. We see the rook e going to g8. And I mean, as you guys can see, I mean, the rook is really kind of stuck. It can't come to this square anymore. It never could. I mean, it was never able to really come to the square to really do anything. We do see the knight going down to f3. We see knight down to g4. And Wesley So just says, hey, man, I'm just going to go ahead and bite the bullet, and I'll just give up the exchange. But I'm going to go down swinging, though. So we do see the move rook taking g4. The rook takes g4, and then we do see the move e5. Pawn takes, we see knight takes, and then we see the bishop retreating back. And so in this position, like I said before, I mean, black has given up an entire piece. And in this particular position that we are in, Danya only has 3 pieces, and Wesley So has 5. But the problem is the white pieces are not coordinated, and these pawns here are definitely worth a couple of pieces that white has above. So we do see the move h2 check, and this is a very unfortunate situation because, I mean, this diagonal, like I said, is completely controlled. So this is very nice calculation from Danya. After we see the move h2 with check, we got knight taking. Like, you have to start giving some material back. The pawn takes on h2, and then we see the king go to f2, and then we see h1 equals queen. And it is in this position that Wesley So actually runs out of time. He only has 3 seconds at this point anyway. So his 3 seconds just runs out and he loses this game on time. But not only on time, I mean, this is a completely lost position. I mean, you guys can see there's 2 queens on the board. Of course, you guys know that this queen on h1 is dropping, but I mean, you're just in too advantageous of a position as black in this position. So if we just kind of progress a little bit forward and we see what's going to go on, we would see rook taking h1, rook taking h1, of course. And you can see that the pawns are equal, but you know, black has the exchange, you know, kind of for everything. And, you know, this king is just completely open. This king is way safe over here, especially after, you know, we try to defend a little bit with queen to g3 as white. But we will see the move a5. And this is just basically creating some lift for the king, because what you really want to do is after, let's say, the pawn takes or something like that, you would see bishop to c4, and you are threatening all kinds of nasties. You got queen coming to e2 with checkmate. You got the rook swinging over here with check. And, you know, possibly swinging down here with another check. And so, I mean, the king is just in a really tight box in this position. And like I said, you did create the lift that you needed to make sure your king is in back rank mated. Because as you guys can see right here, this is a back rank possibility. So we make sure that we, you know, get the lift from that. After bishop to c4, you know, the king would probably come over to g2. The rook would just retreat up to h8. We would see bishop to d3. You got to try to trade something down, man. Bishop takes, queen takes, but then you see the move queen to h4, and you are just literally being hunted to death. You have a completely passed pawn over here. You got a rook and a queen, and you got the king looking really unsafe. So that is not really a position that you want to be in. So in this one, it is Malakas C. Daniel Naroditsky. This is a really well-played game. And if you notice in, you know, these types of games, I mean, you just basically have like all the types of chess principles. You know, you have the opposite side castling, you have, you know, throwing your pawns forward and create opening lines and stuff like that. And, you know, it comes down, it kind of came down to fundamentals. You know, Wesley So, you know, he didn't quite get the development that he needed. So he was just really kind of confined, and he was, you know, getting put in defensive mode. Like I said, it's just a really nicely played game by Daniel Naroditsky. I think it's a little bit more rare because Wesley So such a strong player. So, you know, it's not often that people get the best of him. So I appreciate you guys very much for coming by. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video, aking mga kaibigan. Mabuting pagbati to you guys, and I will see you guys next time.